The Millionaire's Will, a cruel joke or a hidden blessing. The reading of the will felt more like a circus than a somber occasion. Arthur Pemberton, the notoriously eccentric millionaire, had always relished being the center of attention, even in death. His opulent mansion, now filled with his bewildered relatives, was a testament to his flamboyant life. But the terms of his will, delivered with a theatrical flourish by his flamboyant lawyer, Mr. Abernathy, were beyond bizarre. "To my beloved family," Mr. Abernathy announced, his voice echoing through the grand hall, "I bequeath absolutely nothing. Except, of course, for the opportunity to compete in a series of challenges. The winner, and only the winner, will inherit my entire fortune." A collective gasp swept through the room. Disbelief warred with outrage. This had to be a joke, a cruel prank orchestrated from beyond the grave. Yet, Mr. Abernathy's poker face and the steely glint in his eyes suggested otherwise. Among the stunned faces was that of Emily Carter, Arthur's niece. Unlike her avaricious cousins and aunts, Emily had always held a genuine affection for her eccentric uncle. But even she couldn't fathom the logic behind this outrageous charade. Was Arthur trying to teach them a lesson? Or was he simply enjoying one last opportunity to manipulate their lives? As the initial shock subsided, a chilling realization dawned on Emily. This was no joke. And the competition was about to begin. Arthur Pemberton was a self-made man, a titan of industry who had amassed a vast fortune through shrewd investments and ruthless business tactics. He was known for his eccentricities, his extravagant lifestyle, and his penchant for playing elaborate games. He never married, and his family consisted of a motley collection of nieces, nephews, and distant relatives, all vying for his attention and his favor. Emily Carter was the exception. She was Arthur's late sister's daughter, a kind and compassionate woman who worked as a librarian. Unlike her materialistic cousins, Emily valued knowledge, art, and human connection over wealth and status. She had always maintained a close relationship with Arthur, appreciating his quirky sense of humor and his surprisingly generous spirit. She visited him regularly, reading to him, playing chess with him, and simply keeping him company in his sprawling mansion. She never asked him for money, and she genuinely enjoyed his company. Arthur, in turn, seemed to have a soft spot for Emily, recognizing her sincerity and her genuine affection. The other relatives, however, were driven by greed and ambition. They showered Arthur with insincere compliments, showered him with expensive gifts, and schemed relentlessly to secure a place in his will. They saw him as a walking ATM, a means to an end. Arthur, fully aware of their motives, enjoyed playing them against each other. He would dangle the promise of wealth only to snatch it away at the last moment. He reveled in their desperation, their petty squabbles, and their constant attempts to outmaneuver each other. As Arthur grew older and his health began to decline, the tension among his relatives intensified. They became more aggressive, more desperate, and more willing to do anything to secure their inheritance. Emily watched in dismay, disgusted by their behavior. She knew that Arthur's death would unleash a torrent of greed and resentment, tearing the family apart. Mr. Abernathy, after pausing for dramatic effect, continued reading the will. "The challenges," he announced, "will test your intelligence, your physical abilities, and your moral character. Each challenge will be designed to expose your true nature, your strengths, and your weaknesses." He elaborated on the specific requirements. The first challenge involved solving a series of complex riddles hidden throughout the mansion. The second required completing a grueling obstacle course on the estate grounds. The third and most perplexing involved performing an act of selfless service for a stranger in need. "The winner of each challenge will receive a key," Mr. Abernathy explained. "The person who possesses all 3 keys at the end of the competition will unlock the vault containing Arthur's will and his entire fortune." The relatives erupted in a cacophony of protests. They accused Mr. Abernathy of being insane, of misinterpreting Arthur's wishes, and of perpetrating a cruel hoax. But Mr. Abernathy remained impassive, his eyes fixed on the document in his hand. "These are the terms of the will," he stated firmly. "If you wish to contest them, you are free to do so. But be warned, Any attempt to circumvent the challenges, to cheat or sabotage your competitors, will result in immediate disqualification. He paused, surveying the room with a knowing smirk. The competition begins now. Chaos erupted. The relatives scattered, scrambling to decipher the first riddle, their greed overriding any semblance of decorum. The mansion, once a symbol of Arthur's wealth and power, became a battleground, a stage for their desperate and often comical attempts to win his fortune. Emily stood frozen, overwhelmed by the absurdity of the situation. She had no desire to compete, no interest in Arthur's money. But she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this than met the eye. She felt like there was a meaning to all this. What was it? The first challenge, the riddle contest, quickly devolved into a farce. The relatives, driven by desperation and a complete lack of intellectual curiosity, resorted to cheating, stealing, and sabotaging each other. One cousin, a pompous lawyer named Reginald, attempted to bribe Mr. Abernathy for the answers. Another, a socialite named Tiffany, tried to seduce the groundskeeper, hoping to glean some inside information. A third, a muscle-bound gym rat named Bruno, simply smashed his way through walls, hoping to stumble upon the solution. Emily, disgusted by their behavior, decided to approach the challenge with integrity and intelligence. She spent hours poring over Arthur's books, deciphering his cryptic notes, and analyzing the clues he had left behind. She discovered that the riddles were not simply random puzzles. They were reflections of Arthur's life, his values, and his unique perspective on the world. Each riddle revealed a hidden facet of his personality, a lesson he had learned, a secret he had kept. As Emily delved deeper into the riddles, she began to understand Arthur's motives. He wasn't simply trying to torture his relatives, he was trying to teach them something. He was trying to force them to confront their flaws, to recognize their potential, and to appreciate the true meaning of wealth and happiness. She succeeded in solving the first riddle, uncovering a hidden compartment in Arthur's library that contained the first key. But she hesitated to claim it, unsure whether she wanted to participate in this twisted game. The second challenge, the obstacle course, was even more grueling. The relatives, fueled by adrenaline and desperation, pushed themselves to their physical limits, enduring mud pits, rope climbs, and treacherous balance beams. Reginald, despite his lack of athletic ability, used his cunning and his legal knowledge to navigate the course, exploiting loopholes and technicalities to gain an advantage. Tiffany, surprisingly agile and resourceful, employed her social skills to enlist the help of other competitors, forming temporary alliances and betraying them at the opportune moment. Bruno, relying on brute strength, bulldozed his way through the course, leaving a trail of destruction in his wake. Emily, though not particularly athletic, approached the challenge with determination and perseverance. She focused on strategy, using her knowledge of the terrain and her understanding of Arthur's personality to anticipate the obstacles and find creative solutions. She helped other competitors who were struggling, offering encouragement and assistance, even though it meant sacrificing her chances of winning. She believed that the challenge was not about beating the other competitors, but about testing herself, pushing her limits, and demonstrating her compassion. Emily completed the obstacle course, earning the second key. But her act of kindness, her willingness to help others, drew the ire of the other relatives. They accused her of being naive, of undermining their efforts, of betraying their shared goal. The third challenge, the act of selfless service, proved to be the most difficult and the most revealing. The relatives, accustomed to receiving rather than giving, struggled to find a way to demonstrate genuine compassion. Reginald attempted to donate a large sum of money to a local charity, but his offer was rejected when it was discovered that the money had been embezzled from Arthur's estate. Tiffany volunteered at a homeless shelter, but her efforts were motivated by a desire for publicity rather than genuine concern. Bruno tried to help an elderly woman carry her groceries, but his brute strength resulted in a broken hip and a lawsuit. Emily, guided by her innate sense of empathy, sought out someone in need and offered her assistance without expecting anything in return. She visited a local nursing home, spending time with the residents, listening to their stories, and offering them companionship. She discovered an elderly woman named Mrs. Gable, a former librarian who had lost her sight and her memory. Emily read to her, played music for her, and helped her reconnect with her past. She found that Mrs. Gable had a kind heart. Emily's kindness and compassion touched Mrs. Gable's heart, bringing her a sense of peace and joy. Emily, in turn, found a renewed sense of purpose, realizing that the greatest rewards in life come from helping others. She received the third key, completed the challenges, and now had all 3 keys. But as she stood before the vault, ready to claim her inheritance, she hesitated. She looked at her cousins with anger. The other relatives, defeated and disillusioned, watched with envy and resentment. They had failed to understand Arthur's lesson, blinded by their greed and their self-centeredness. Mr. Abernathy stepped forward, his expression grave. "Are you ready, Emily?" he asked. "Are you prepared to accept Arthur's inheritance?" Emily looked at her cousins, her eyes filled with compassion. She knew that Arthur's money would only perpetuate their unhappiness, reinforcing their materialistic values and fueling their destructive tendencies. She made a decision. A bold decision that would change everything. Emily turned to Mr. Abernathy, her voice clear and resolute. "I cannot accept the inheritance," she declared. "I cannot perpetuate the cycle of greed and resentment that has consumed this family for so long." The relatives gasped, stunned by her unexpected decision. Mr. Abernathy raised an eyebrow, intrigued by her response. "What do you propose, Emily?" he asked. "I propose that Arthur's fortune be donated to charity," she replied. "To organizations that support education, healthcare, and the arts. To causes that promote compassion, understanding, and social justice." The relatives erupted in protest, accusing Emily of being insane, of throwing away their inheritance, and of betraying their family. But Emily stood firm, her conviction unwavering. She explained her reasoning, her belief that Arthur's money could do more good in the world than it ever could in their hands. She reminded them of Arthur's values, his generosity, and his desire to make a positive impact on society. She argued that they had a responsibility to honor his legacy and use his wealth to create a better future for all. Slowly, reluctantly, the relatives began to come around. They realized that Emily was right, that Arthur's money had only brought them unhappiness, and that they would be better off without it. They agreed to support Emily's proposal, signing a document relinquishing their claims to Arthur's inheritance and authorizing Mr. Abernathy to donate the money to charity. Mr. Abernathy, visibly moved by their transformation, smiled approvingly. "Arthur would be proud of you," he said. "He always knew that you were the best of his relatives. And he knew that you could change the world." As the relatives left the mansion, they were no longer driven by greed and resentment. They had learned a valuable lesson, realizing that the true meaning of wealth lies not in material possessions, but in compassion, generosity, and the power to make a positive impact on the lives of others. Emily returned to her quiet life as a librarian, finding fulfillment in her work and her relationships. She never regretted her decision, knowing that she had done the right thing, honoring Arthur's legacy and inspiring others to live a life of purpose and compassion. Years later, Emily received a letter from Mr. Abernathy. He informed her that Arthur had left her a secret inheritance, a small but significant sum of money that was not included in the will. The catch? She had already demonstrated her generosity, her selflessness, and her commitment to making a difference in the world. Arthur was sure she had made all the right choices in her life. The letter read, "To my beloved Emily, I knew that you would do the right thing. This money is for you to use as you see fit. But please, promise me that you will continue to live a life of purpose and compassion, inspiring others to do the same. With love, Arthur." Emily smiled, tears welling up in her eyes. Arthur hadn't been playing a cruel joke. He had been offering a hidden blessing, a chance for his family to learn a valuable lesson and to embrace a life of true wealth and happiness.